Hello students, in this video we are going to cover chapter 5th of class 7th. The name of the chapter is The Rise of Empires. Okay, we are going to study about the rise of empires, about what kind of new empires came into the India. Okay, and about rise of Magad, about what is basically an empire is, the might and morals, and all about these in detail we are going to study in this chapter. So let's start with this intro of this chapter. So first question comes that what basically an empire is. Okay, so I'm sure you are favorable with this term that an empire. Empire is I hope you know what is a kingdom. Okay, a kingdom where simply a king rules. Okay, but I hope you have heard through anyone that a king and that the wars between kings is very normal during that time. Okay, everyone used to fight with others kingdom or other surroundings kingdom to trap their land. Okay, so this kind of freedom when a king wins other kings land. Okay, and this is how their kingdoms expand, and this is called empire. Okay, when a particular king of a kingdom wins others land and increases their area, that means they win a lot of kingdoms of around area or whatever it is, then it becomes an empire. Okay, empire is a large large, you can say this is a large area, and a kingdom is a unit of empires, you can say. Okay, so the word empire comes from a Latin word which means, from a Latin word imperium, which means supreme power. Okay, so when you have with so many kingdoms and you have become on a supreme position, from a king to a supreme position you have reached. An empire is a larger kingdom which is made up of small tiny kingdoms when you have gained victory over that. Okay, which is made up of small kingdoms or regions. Okay, now kingdom may still have their own local rulers, but they must follow the emperor and pay him tribute. The emperor usually rules from a big important capital city that is also center of trade and administrations. Okay, in ancient Sanskrit, different words used to show a great power for the emperor, because emperor is literally a great power because they have with so many kingdoms and now their area is expanded so much. Okay, and in today's time the fight is of metals, about resources, but earlier times the fight is only about the land, at how long, at how wealthy you are, how much land you have. That was the fight of that time. Okay, so empire is based on mostly that. So these terms like Samraj, which means lord of all. Okay, Samraj term is used to say lord of all, like say supreme ruler, which means Adhiraj. Okay, which means overlord, and Raja Dhiraja, that means king of kings. Okay, so these terms were used for this to show the great power of an empire. Okay, now let's come back to the features of empire. We have understood what is empire basically is, and so many words has derived to explain its superpower of empire. So okay, now let's study about the features of empire. Okay, so maintain an army to keep the tributary states under control, expand the empire, protect it from outside aggression. Okay, this is obvious to understand. When you have so many armies around you, then your empire will be protected. Okay, design and maintain an administration with official to manage the territories, collect taxes, maintain law and order. Okay, you already know that taxes are collected from the common citizens in order to provide them good facilities and all. So this was the main reason of that time also. But kings basically get the luxurious life which the kings and queens live by gaining some taxes from the citizens. Okay, so that is also included in this. Makes laws, issues currencies, weight measures, regulates. Okay, these are the features of empire. Controls and regulates access to resources, mines, crafts, agriculture, produce. Okay, encourage art, literature, religious schools. Okay, centers of learning. This is also a feature of empire, that they have to encourage these things also to maintain different kinds of skills in that area. Okay, maintain communication network and other infrastructure of administration, trade and people's welfare, so that a proper communication is possible. In exchange of their loyalty and payment of tribe, emperors usually permitted local kings or chiefs to keep rulers their own regions. Okay, so in exchange of loyalty and payment, what they do, usually permitted local kings or chiefs to keep ruling their own regions. Okay, so this is how exchange of lands and kingdoms also takes place. Clear? So this was basic things that what is empire, what are its features. Now let's study what are trade routes and guilds. Okay, so running military campaigns, especially in faraway lands, were never easy. Okay, it is really not easy. If your land is very far, then how you will able to rule that military campaign? Okay, so keeping an army ready required a lot of money. Okay, that means for army you need a lot of money to make it ready and strong. Okay, that's why wealthy kingdoms mostly have strong armies. So soldiers need food, clothes, weapons, and salaries. This is very expensive. Animals like elephants and horses need care. Roads has to be built and ships prepared. All of this needs a strong economy, good planning, and many resources. Okay, so these all things are required to maintain a strong army. Okay, along with money. Okay, that's why economic activities like farming, making things, and especially trade were very important for any empire. Okay, a wise ruler knew that strong trade meant better income for people and more tax for the empire. Okay, that means a wise ruler has, that much knowledge about that a strong trade means better income for people. That means it's really important to make a strong trade. Okay, as much you have, ability to reach far away reaches, as much your overall development, economic development will increase. Okay, and more tax for the empire is also important for good infrastructure. This income helped the ruler to keep the empire safe and improve people's lives. Okay, because money is required for good army, for good protection of the kingdom. So and for money, what a wise, according to a wise man, a strong trade and better income is required. Okay, so in ancient times, many items were traded. Okay, for trading exports and imports, and this is how this trading system goes. So we know that from books and from things found in old cities that items like textiles, spices, crops, gems, and even animals, these things were traded during that time. Okay, these goods were not only sold within India but were also sent to faraway lands by land. And see, and this is how better income comes when your trading and communication system will improve. Okay, I'm sure you would have also read a communication chapter when we discussed about Indian communication and trade system. There also I explained you that trading system should be good for overall economical development of a country. Okay, now look at this map where you can see where black dots are representing important cities, these Uttar Path and Dakshin Path, okay, and other routes. Okay, from this country, that how trading is possible, that how different routes are made for trading for the better income, for better for better income, and better income is strong kingdoms, and so that no any other kingdom are able to capture us. Okay, so this is how trading system is gone. For example, this Sopura are reaching to let's take another example. For example, this Rajgriha has path and reaching to different and passing through different famous cities. Okay, so this is a map which is telling us. Now, most trades did not work alone. What does it mean? They formed groups called guilds. That means most of trades do not work alone. They form groups called guilds, which is called sharis in Sanskrit. These guilds were powerful and well organized. A guild has a leader, often elected, and other members who help run things. Okay, that means a guild has a leader which is often elected by the people, common citizens, and the members who help run things. So obviously, there is a leader and the followers who help to support the things. Guild were special for two big reasons. So let's study the two big reasons. Guild is special, okay, because not most trades did not work alone. Okay, so instead of competing, the traders worked together. Instead of competing, the traders worked together, shared ideas, and helped one another. This made everyone stronger. Okay, that means competition. Without the competition with each other, the traders work each other, shared ideas, and help one another. Okay, this is how simultaneously all everyone do create better income and do not compete with each other. Guilds made own rules. The king usually did not interfere because the guilds handled things well and helped the empire grow. Okay, why king does not enter? Because guilds already handle the things properly. Okay, they do not do competition and grow simultaneously along with each other. Okay, and empire grows well. That's why king also don't interfere. Guilds were not just for traders. They were also guild for farmers, moneylenders, and artisans. They spread across India and lasted for many years. Even after guild ended, the idea of working together continued in Indian business culture. Okay, you have also seen this, that still also Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, there are some kind of, reflections you can see of guilds over there. Okay, so this was very helpful, which helps to grow the along with village councils and other local groups, still shows how Indian society often managed itself without needing constant control for emperors. Okay, so this proof make the guild's importance more. Okay, now let's study about rise of Magad. Okay, so I already told you the what is empire basically. So the first empire which was made was Magda Empire. Okay, so here they written that what we studied about previous chapters about Mahajanpadas, 16 Mahajanpadas. Okay, but now what you need to understand that Magadha was situated in the rich and fertile Gangetic plain. That means this was the first empire which was established. What name? It's Magadha. Okay, and it was very fertile. That means there was rivers around it. Okay, overall infrastructure was already very good. A fertile Gangetic plains was around it. An area full of natural resources. Okay, so that definitely this empire going to be very famous because full of resources, Gangetic plains, fertile. Okay, plenty of forest for timber, fertile soil for farming, and elephants that were useful in welfare. So all these was already present in this empire. What is Magadha Empire? Okay, so the discovery and use of iron brought major change in farming and battles. Okay, which made Magadha more popular. Now, iron ore and other minerals found in nearby hills helped Magadha grow stronger. Iron bluffs made farming easier and more productive. Okay, and this is how Magadha grew more stronger. Okay, now the production of extra fruit trees allowed many people to take up arts and crafts, which is high in demands both within and outside the empire. Okay, and this is how Magadha Empire became more stronger due to these so many important facilities and full of resources of it. Okay, and now if the ruler also becomes stronger, then it will become more beneficial for the Magadha plains. Okay, for the Magadha Empire. Okay, because first it is full of resources and now the ruler is also good, so definitely the empire will be very stronger. Okay, so around the 15th century BCE, which is before Common Era, Mahapadma Nanda became a stronger ruler and found the Nanda dynasty. That means for first Nanda dynasty came in this Magadha Empire. Okay, now he united many small kingdoms and expanded its empire. Okay, this is how empire actually fought, and by winning so many small kingdoms around, this is how the empire actually expanded. Okay, across the parts of eastern and northern India. So as Magadha economy grew, he began issuing coins showing his wealth and power. Greek records also tell us that Nandas has a large and well occupied army. That means through records we came to know that this Nanda dynasty really full of well occupied army and wealth. Okay, however, the last Nanda ruler, who extremely wealthy, became very unpopular. He treated his people unfairly. That means their Nanda dynasty was not as much popular as the next upcoming dynasty is, which we will just study. But let's study that Nanda dynasty was not as much popular because the ruler Nanda was wealthy but still not popular because he treated the people unfairly. Okay, he exploited the people. His dissatisfaction opened the door for new power to rise. So this was not so popular. Okay, but the next dynasty was very popular. Now first let's study about the arrival of the Greeks. Okay, so while important events take place in Magadha in the eastern part of the subcontinent, the northwest region was also witnessing development of its own. Okay, this area had several small kingdoms situated along an ancient trade route that to connect India to Mediterranean world. Okay, one such kingdom mentioned Greek records was that was ruled by their famous king Porus. Okay, so this is important to understand that Porus was ruled by its favorite king Porus. Okay, and India was expanding its roots through its route. Okay, and now became a Mediterranean world. Okay, that means the mid of the world which is connected with all the parts. Okay, now this is some timelines of conquest which you can keep in your mind for more understanding. Now let's study about Alexander and the wise sages. Okay, that means Nanda dynasty first came. That was not much popular due to its wealthy kingdom because he treated the people unfairly. But now this became very famous. Okay, because long ago a powerful king Alexander came from Greece and journeyed all the way to India. He had won many battles and ruled over a vast empire. One day he heard about a group of Indian sages, wise men who lived simply and wore very little. That's why Greek called them gymnosophist or naked philosopher. Okay, gymnosophist or naked philosophers. Okay, better naked means those which we can see through our eyes. Okay, so the naked philosophers which we can see through our eyes, that's similar to that. Okay, so Alexander was a king who was from Greece. He did a lot of journeys. Okay, he heard about the group of Indian sages which was of wise men who lived simply and wore very little. Okay, that's why Greek called the gymnosophist or naked philosophers. This much is clear. Okay, now Alexander was curious. Okay, he was very curious. He loved asking difficult questions, and which made Alexander extraordinary. Okay, so he went to meet them and said, I will ask your riddles. I will ask you riddles. If you answer wisely, I will let you live, but if you don't, you may be punished. So the sages were not afraid. Okay, they stood calmly and listened. Alexander asked, which is stronger, life or death? Which is stronger? So one sage replied, life is stronger because it continues while death ends. Okay. The Alexander asked, how can a man be most loved? This was the questions of Alexander. Another sage answered, if he is powerful but he does not make others fear him. Okay. That means how a man be most loved because he is powerful and does not make others fear him. Okay, so this was the answer of sages. Alexander thought for a moment. These answers were clever and peaceful. He smiled and said, "You are truly wise." He let them go and unharmed. Okay, so this is showing the curiosity of Alexander and his way of asking questions. The story reminds us how wisdom and calm thinking can impress even the mightiest ruler and how different cultures can learn from each other. Okay, so these things are very important that a wise and calm thinking can help a person in a difficult situation also. That means this wise and calm thinking helped sages to impress even the mightiest ruler, that is Alexander. Okay, now let's study about the mighty Mauryans. After our brief look at events in the northwest, let's return to Magda, where the powerful Nanda Empire was in decline. Okay, the empire was in decline because the kingdom, wealthiest kingdom of that, would treated the people unfairly. Around 321 before Common Era, just a few years ago after Alexander's departure from India, a new ruler rose to power, and this is Chandragupta Maurya, and this is exactly that ruler which I was talking about, that he became much more famous than Nanda dynasty. Okay, let me highlight this with another color, Nanda dynasty. Sorry, Chandragupta Maurya. Okay. Now, he founded the Maurya Empire that soon took over the Nanda territories and expanded even further, becoming one of the largest and most influential empires in Indian history. It is important to understand that this is the largest and most influenced empire in Indian history. Okay, this you can see in the map that this was the trade route area of that time. Okay. Chandragupta rise would not have been possible without the guidance of a brilliant advisor, that is Kautilya. Okay, that was first we have already studied that Magda Empire is full of resources, full of rivers, full of iron ores. So this was already on peak. Okay, now the ruler is also good, that is Chandragupta Maurya. This added stars in the story. Okay, and now additionally we have Chandragupta Maurya has a Kautilya, okay, who was a brilliant advisor to Chandragupta Maurya. Okay, so now this kingdom was on its peak level. Okay, also known as Chanakya or Vishnugupta. These are alternative names of Kautilya. Okay, he was a master of political strategy. Okay, that means he guides the king because he was a master of political strategy. He was a master of economics and governance. So he is able to help the Chandragupta Maurya more perfectly. With this help, the Maurya Empire became a model of statecraft and strength. Okay, so you can understand that if you have a good advisor in your life, then how good you are able to take decisions. Okay, now this map is showing that the region of Maurya Empire, that Maurya Empire, that these orange color is showing the Maurya Empire extension. Okay, so Maurya Empire was expanding its extension by winning the kingdoms. Okay, and the star is denoting its main capitals. Okay, these stars denoting the main capitals. Now the story of Kautilya. That this Kautilya, what is the story behind its so powerful governance and political thinking knowledge? So let's study. So according to Buddhist text, Kautilya was a respected teacher at the famous university Taksila, modern day Taxila. His story begins in the court of Dhananda, the unpopular ruler of Magadha. Okay, we have already just discussed about Dhananda. He was a wealthy ruler, but he treated the people unfairly, so he was very unpopular. Okay, but we discussed about him again because his story begins in the court of Dhananda. Okay. Now, seeing how poorly Dhananand ruled, Kautilya warned him to change his ways or risk losing everything. That means Kautilya also told Dhananand to do right work, but he did not listen. But instead of listening, Dhananand insulted him and threw him out of the court. Okay. Now, the moment changed history. Humiliated but determined, Kautilya vowed to the end of Nanda dynasty. Okay, that means that Kautilya was threw out of the court of Dhananda, and now the dynasty was completely uh, vanished because Dhananda was ruling over there. Okay, now he found a promising young leader Chandragupta, and together they set out to build an empire that would transform India. Okay, this is the beautiful thing, that now Kautilya, who is a very smart person, is now get a good governance, Chandragupta Maurya, and they both together make a powerful and had led a good impact to transform India. Okay, let's study forward. Next, we have Chandragupta Maurya and the vision of a great empire. Okay, so we have studied that Chandragupta Maurya and Kautilya have together did a good work. Let's study what work they have done. Okay, so there were many exciting stories about how Chandragupta Maurya began his journey, but all of them agree at one point. Okay, he overthrew Nanda dynasty and took control of Magadha, making Pataliputra, modern day Patna, his capital. That means the capital wanted to be Pataliputra made the capital. Magadha had fertile land. We have already discussed that Magadha had fertile land, rich resources, well-developed trade routes, and strong economy. Right? We have already discussed about it. With the help from the brilliant thinker and strategist Kautilya, also known as Chanakya, Chandragupta slowly built a powerful empire. Okay, this we have already discussed. He even defeated the Greek satraps, governors left behind by Alexander the Great in the northwest, and united large parts of India from the Gangetic Plains to the Deccan Plains. That means he also defeated a strong person, Greek satraps governors. Okay. After these victories, Chandragupta did not just fight, he also formed diplomatic relationship. He invited Greek ambassadors and historians Megasthenes to his court. Megasthenes wrote about life in India in a book called Indica. That means he invited Megasthenes who write about the life of India, who write about life in India in a book called Indica. That means Indica is a book where about India is written. Okay, although the full book is lost, the part of it are still known today because later Greek writers quoted for it. Okay, that means full book is lost, but later still we have some things, some content of it. Next we have Kautilya vision. Next we have Kautilya vision of a kingdom. Okay, so let's study about the ideology of Chanakya. Okay, Kautilya had a deep understanding how a kingdom should work. In his famous book, the Arthashastra, that means the science of economics and governance, he explained the key areas a king should focus on. Defense, that means a king should focus on defense, economy, justice, agriculture, city planning, and people's welfare. Okay, according to Chanakya, which he wrote about these in a book, Arthashastra. Clear? Now, one of his important ideas were called Saptanga theory, or the 7 pillars of a kingdom. Okay, what these ideas include? These, according to Chanakya, according to him, the ideas include the king. The king is a Swami. The territory of populations, the treasury. Okay, these are the important ideas. These are the 7 important things according to him. The forces of defense and law of order and allies. Okay, according to Chanakya. So Chanakya believed a kingdom should be well governed, peaceful, and prosperous. He supported both strong armies and clever alliances to maintain power. He also stressed the need for law and order and took a strong stand against corruption, even suggesting punishments to protect the welfare of the people. So you can understand it how modern the thinking of Chanakya at that time also. Okay. Now, Kautilya Court's idea of governance closely reflects Indian ideals. A king's happiness lies in the happiness of his subject. His welfare is found in their welfare. He should not view as good only what pleases him, but consider as truly beneficial whatever brings joy to his people. In simple terms, no matter how powerful a ruler is, the well-being of people must always come first. Okay, that means it does not matter that how powerful a ruler you are talking about. What matters is that how the well-being of the people, that comes always first. Okay, that how our peoples are living, what is the condition of people, that matters, not the wealth of the king. Okay, so this is a very beautiful line. Now let's study about Ashok. Okay, so Ashok was also a very great leader. Okay, the king who chose peace. Okay, so let me tell you the broad story of it. That Ashok was a very powerful leader. Okay, but in order to earn so many kingdom areas, he defeated so many people, and later he came to realize that we are, killing so many people. So much blood is bleeding just in order to earn some land of the earth. Okay, so at that time, at that moment, he realized that peace is everything, not power, wealth. These are just traps of the world. Okay, so with this, he deeply impacted Ashok's life when he saw so many, let's study it deeply. Another important ruler of Maurya dynasty was Ashok. Okay, so grandson of Chandragupta Maurya. Okay, who was Ashok? He was the grandson of Chandragupta Maurya. He remembered for both his administrative skills and his religious transformations. At the beginning of his reign, Ashok was a determined and ambitious king. Although he inherited a vast empire, that means he inherited a vast empire, but still he was a determined and ambitious king. Okay, so he expanded it even further, covering nearly the whole India subcontinent. That means a large part of that means a very large part was under the control of Ashok, except for the southernmost tip. Okay, that means India is like this. Okay, so except the southernmost, the entire part was of Ashok. Okay, according to his okay, so his rule extended across what is today's India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and even parts of Afghanistan. That means if okay, that means if this is India, this is Pakistan, Afghanistan, then they have trapped all of land. Okay, so very large part of India and around its area was another trap of him. Okay, so according to his own descriptions, he led a brutal military campaign against Kalinga, modern day Odisha. The war caused tremendous sufferings with countless lives lost. Okay, and this when Ashok saw these so much lives lost just in order to gain some money, some wealth, so he became deeply depressed and accepted peace, except of these luxurious life. Okay, so Ashok had a change of heart. He gave up violence and began to follow the path of peace inspired by teaching of the Buddha. Okay, so embracing the teaching of Buddhism, Ashok took active steps to spread his message and beyond his empire. He sent missionaries to distant lands like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Central Asia, and other regions, helping to carry the Buddha's message of peace, compassion, and non-violence across Asia. Okay, so that war impacted a deep impact on Ashoka. So he adopted all these peace according to Buddha, except these luxurious life which he was living. Okay, so historians often refer to Ashok as great communicator because he shared his messages across the empire through edicts carved on rocks and pillars. These inscriptions encouraged people to follow dharma or a path of righteousness. Most of Ashok's edicts were written in Prakrit, the common language of the time, and used the Brahmi script that later gave rise to many religious scripts in India. Okay, so this is a very amazing thing, that how how easily he sacrificed all those in order to get some peace in his life. Now you can see this map, okay, where these red dots are denoting the major rock edicts, okay, and blue triangles are denoting minor rock edicts, and all these you can understand and read this map thoroughly. Okay, in his edicts, Ashok called himself a Devapriya Piyadasi. Okay, he called himself this, beloved of the gods and one who looks kindly upon others. Okay, these titles were given to Ashok. Okay, for example, although some southern kingdoms lay outside modern control, Ashok impressed concern for their well-being. Okay, so Ashok was very famous around that time. He claimed to provide medical aid for both people and animals even beyond his empire's border. Okay, that means the region which is not under the control of Ashok, still he provided medical treatment to those people. Banned animals cruelty and hunting and assured injured people received care. That means he banned cruel hunting on animals and make the animals safe. Okay, in this sense, he may be considered one of the earliest rulers to advocate for nature and animal welfare. Ashok also said he has planted fruit and shade trees, built rest houses, and dug wells along major roads to make travel easier and more pleasant. That means he was very curious about people's need, about people's requirement, and focused on trade improvement, about people's sufferings. Okay, What he promoted harmony among different religions and sects and encouraged people to learn from each other's teachings. Okay, so while not all Ashok claims can be confirmed, it's evident that the followed the ideal of good governance, like that laid out by Kautilya, focusing on the welfare of his people and maintaining strong communication. Okay, according to Kautilya Chanakya, the Mauryan Empire lasted for about 50 years. This is a huge number after Ashok's death. Okay, however, that means after Ashok's death, only 15 years the empire was going on, and after that, it was closed. Okay, now, however, without a leader of his caliber, the empire gradually weakened. It broke apart, gave rise to new independent kingdoms, and marking the beginning of new chapter in Indian history. Okay, but Ashok's time period was in a history because he did an absolute remarkable work. Okay, now let's study about life in the Mauryan period. Okay, so cities such as Patliputra, which was the capital, vibrant hubs of governance and commerce, featuring grand places, public structures, and carefully laid out streets. Okay, the urban centers reflected meticulous planning. A robust means strong. Okay, robust, strong taxation system and active trade kept the treasury well funded, driving the empire's expansion and prosperity. The city's dynamic life was shaped by the contributions of imperial officials, merchants, and skilled artisans. Okay, so due to robust taxation, these were the impact on the people. Okay, now Bhakti's accounts also throw some lights on the society of that time. Substantial proportion of the population was engaged in agriculture. Okay, that was an important source of revenue for the empire. That means the population which were engaged in agriculture, you know that in India large number of population were engaged in agriculture. That was an important source of income. Okay, two crops were sown in a year. Okay, rain fell in both summer and winter because India's climate is very diverse, so it's possible to grow two kinds of crops in a year. Okay, this ensured the famines were rare and people had ample food. Okay, granaries were well stocked for any eventualities. Even war raged nearby, farmers protected from, and agriculture was not disturbed. Blacksmiths, porters, carpenters, jewelries lived in the cities. The cities were well planned and had signage on the streets. Communication happened through countries, couriers, who carried messages from place to place. The houses were made up of wood and could be two-story stalls. So these are some conditions that houses made up of wood, built of two-story stalls. The streets had vessels of water stored and regular intervals in case of fire. That means the overall infrastructure of that time was very good. Okay. Later account described the cotton dresses people, a lower garments that reached below the knee halfway down to ankles, and upper garment that threw over the shoulders. Okay, so this was their way of wearing clothes. Some wore leather shoes were designed and thick soles to make them look taller. Okay, which is making them taller by wearing such kinds of designs and thick clothes. Okay, the Sarnath pillars carries profound messages. Profound means deep. Okay, so deep messages before its artistic beauty and preciseness, because so analyzed work has done. Okay, people are wearing a different kinds of wearing clothes. Agriculture system is all purified. Okay, people has done everything so managed and proper way. Okay, now the top portion of the pillar was erected at Ashok at Sarnath near Varanasi, the attire where Buddha delivered his first sermon. Okay, so this was all about that how well at Ashok's side the people so well organized. Okay, so you can read this. Now the fragile nature of empires. Okay, fragile means very soft, very fragile, very easily to break. Okay, so the many powerful empires like Roman, Persian, Ottoman, and British once ruled large parts of the world, but eventually declined. Okay, historians still debate the reasons for their fall, showing that even stronger empires can be fragile. Okay, empires can unite regions and bring peace and prosperity, but they also fragile. Okay, so heavy demands during wars or droughts, weak rulers, distant territories, and natural disasters can lead to rebellion and collapse. So this is how any strong kingdom can be collapsed. Through empires reduce conflicts among small kingdoms, because small kingdoms has united and a larger kingdom, as you can say, has formed. So the small kingdoms, each other's conflict has been removed with the formation of empire. Now they are often built and maintained by force, making them unstable in the long run. Okay, so this was all your chapter. Here your chapter completes. Okay.